So in this lecture, we are going to be creating a model just because we want our data to be formatted in a different way. So in a specific way, let's go ahead and create a directory here called models. And inside this directory, we are going to be creating a model. And the model that we are going to be creating is something related to our database, right? For example, if I was creating a CMS, of course, the CMS has different features that I want to include, like, for example, categories, posts, messages, chats, or whatever. So our models are going to have those names of those collections that we want to deal with. For example, now in Mongoose, I want to deal with a collection called users. So I'm going to create a model. And now there are different ways of actually naming your models. I like to name my models with an uppercase user and all singular. Okay. So models are usually going to be singular in most languages, but you will see people writing it with a lowercase. It's up to you however you want to write it, depending where you come from, what specific language. But from my convention, from how I learned, I always uppercase the model just to tell that this is a special file, right? I come from a PHP background, so we name our models with a uppercase there. So let's create a file. And now what we're going to be doing here is, first thing is installing or requiring our Mongoose module. Okay, just like this. And now we need to create a definition for our data. Okay, so we use the Mongoose object and we actually use this model method. Okay, and we're going to pass a couple parameters here. The first parameter that we are going to pass, that we can pass, is the name of our model. What name do you want to give it? Let's say, for example, I like to name my models the same name as the database, whatever the database is going to be. Now, Mongoose is going to grab, okay, every time we create a model and we insert data, it's going to grab the singular name, okay, of your model, and it's going to create a collection in plural, all lowercase. Okay, so I know that my collection would be users. I just put users. That's going to be, now that is kind of confusing, and if you want it to be something else, you can. Let's just call it user if you want. Okay, that's the same name that we gave our file here. Okay, now I like to, like I say, I like to name it the same name as the database, what the database is going to be, or not a database, collection, sorry. Second parameter is going to be the data definition. It's going to be an object that has keys and values, and that's how we define our data. Okay, so I'm going to say that each user is going to have a name. Now this name field is going to be an object. Okay, and this object is going to have the types of definition that I want in the data. Okay, so this key is the name that's gonna be in the, let's say, for example, if you come from a background of MySQL, this is gonna be the column. It's gonna be the row is gonna have a row of name, and the column types would be this in MySQL. But of course, this would be the type string, like this, uppercase, comma, because this is an object, and then we want to say, well, this is going to be required. So this is validation in the server, in your database. So for example, if you trying to insert a record and you don't insert the name, this required true is going to trigger, and you're going to have some type of error and your data is not going to be inserted. So this is validating that the data has to be there before. So we have this validation here that we are um, requiring it. Now we're saying, listen, it needs to be type string. So if it's something else, I need you to cry. I need you to complain, and your data is not going to be um, inserted, okay, or read or anything like that. So make sure that you are understanding this. We are formatting how we want our data in the database collection, right? We also have other ones like minimum length, minimum type, minimum height. We can use this guy right here. Okay, there are so many different validators for Mongoose. You can read on the documentation about it. Say the minimum length has to be at least one character. Let's just put this, or it could be, I think for a name, 4 character, 4 is fine. Okay. Then we have things like trim. We want to trim all the white, all the stuff around. Make sure that the data is clean, right? So this is just one. Now, if the user had a last name, we can go ahead and create another one. Okay, and paste it right here. And I could say last name like this. And let's just call this first name. Okay, last name should be something very similar, right? Let's say the user was, let's create it as is active field here, is active. And then is active is going to be type what? We can say number. Number, okay? To be 0 or 1 or something like that. Or we can say Boolean for true and false, like this. But remember, uppercase, okay? So I'm just going to say number here. And we can even set some type of default. And we can just say 0 or something like that. Okay? Again, there are many of this in the documentation. You're welcome to read it. So let's come back here, and right after our definition here, we can say module dot exports, and we can export if we create some type of the name of the model here, we can export it out, right? Now, there is another way that I use, and this is just one way of doing it. We can go ahead and use the structure in here too if we wanted to, like that. Now, when I create a project in the next sections, okay, I don't use this format a lot. I'm going to tell you the format that I use and that I see commonly used all the time. I just wanted to show you one way of doing it. Okay, so you would go ahead and create. This is just the best way to understand it. Now that you understand how this works, remember that we are going to be pulling this module, this file, from another file that we are going to be using it. For example, we're going to be using it here in the server. Okay, or we can use it in a separate file for our routes, but we're going to be using it in the server, and later on I'll show you how to use it in the routes. But all this stuff that we're doing here is because we're keeping things separate. We could easily go back to our server and create the model here if we wanted to. That's fine, but it's not the right way of doing it. That's why we're creating this in a separate file, and then we are putting the user or whatever definition we got here in this constant, and we are adding it to our module exports object, so that way we can pull it from another file. Now, all we have to do here now is come back here and say const user, and then we require our model here. Come back here, and we say models, and we comment user. Now we have all that definition here. So now we can use the properties or objects. And this, behind the scenes, this model has methods that we can use, that Mongoose creates for us, that has pre-built methods that, for example, save It has, remove and all that. Things that we can use to create data, remove data, do the CRUD basically, okay? Now here we are using it to create, to format our data how we want our data to be. And we do this by using keys and values, okay? Simple as that. Now on the next lecture, I'll show you a different way of doing it, and we'll create a route to start inserting data. Thank you so much. See you in the next lecture, guys. Hopefully you are enjoying the course.